Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Alara Sage. And today I want to discuss the death of hierarchical leadership and what is being born, what is emerging in its place. We all have experienced hierarchical leadership for eons. It has been one of humanity's primary lessons. This may sound strange, but we always are moving through lessons both individually and as a collective. If you truly look back on history, you can, from an outside perspective, very clearly see the lessons that were being worked through, understood at a collective level. And humanity has been understanding these stories and the experiences of what I like to call victim perpetrator for a very long time. Now, don't get too wrapped up in the exact definition of those words because it's not defined exactly as victim and exactly as perpetrator. You could call it someone that is in control and someone that is being controlled. And we've understood both of these roles and what is created, again, on a global level and an individual level, when we are in a hierarchical leadership. There is a lot of disempowerment. There is a lot of blame. And there's a lot of manipulation and even coercion in the governments, in corporations, in communities and systems. Everything that has to do with humanity. And that has all been a lesson for all of us to understand. Now, what's happening right now, but I do want to say it will take time. This is not going to simply happen overnight. But you may already be seeing this, and you're definitely going to start to see, one, the collapse of hierarchical leadership across the globe and the emergence of embodied authority, sovereign leadership, these types of words and phrases that are really referring to a cynical, communal co-creation. This isn't some fantasy or utopia idea. And again, this isn't going to happen, like snap of a finger in the next couple of years. But what is going to happen and what is already happening is this embodied authority. And what that means is three things. That everybody is gaining a level of self-awareness. And self-awareness is where you are aware of your own thoughts, your own emotions, and your actions, and the origin, the why behind why you feel what you feel, why you think what you think, and why you do what you do. That's self-awareness. And from that awareness, you have the choice to alter how you feel, alter how you think, and alter what actions you take. A self-aware person is not only just aware of themselves. When you become aware of yourself, of your own thoughts, feelings, and actions, you also begin to become aware of others. And this is, again, something that is very obvious in our society, how unaware people are. Like you see people driving and it's like they're not even paying any attention to anything around them. You see people walking down the street and it's the same thing. Somebody's on the sidewalk in pain and agony and the person doesn't even acknowledge that person is suffering or they exist or anything like that because there is a lack of self-awareness. So when there's a lack of self-awareness, there's a lack of awareness to others as well. When people are functioning in a state of a lack of awareness, they require guidance. They require somebody to tell them what to do because they are not in a state of self-authority and self-recognition of what is required of them to serve the bigger picture, aka serve the community, serve the corporation, serve society. The second one is self-empowerment. And this is the ability to recognize that you have the power to make decisions in your life. You have the power to make choices in your life. You have the power to change your reality. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not a victim of your country. You're not a victim of your people. You are not a victim of the world. All of the great leaders, the true leaders like Nelson Mandela, these are people who were self-empowered, who chose self-empowerment, and from that state of self-empowerment were able to empower others. Again, when a society is not empowered in and of themselves, they are not powerful together either. And therefore, there is a requirement of some sort of guidance, control. These are things that maybe some people don't want to hear, but I'm not here to sugarcoat things. I'm not here to speak niceties. I'm here to speak truth. And this is also what religion did. Because a person who's self-aware, self-empowered, and my third point is take self-ownership, doesn't need a religion to tell them what is right or wrong, what is ethical, and what is immoral. Those attributes are innate to our being when we are self-aware, self-empowered, and we take self-ownership. But as you can see, that has not been our society. And therefore, we've been under hierarchical leadership, and religion has been guiding humanity. I'm not calling it right or wrong. I'm just saying what it was for. The fact that there was ever the need to have a 10 commandments to tell you what was immoral and what was not immoral speaks to what I am bringing forth here today. Because there were times in human consciousness where killing somebody had to be very clearly defined as wrong because there wasn't an internal structure, an internal knowing for not necessarily all the people at that time, but enough people, even today, that we have to define it as unlawful, right? That it needs to be regulated. It needs to be policed because people are not self-aware, self-empowered, and take self-ownership. So it's important to understand that it's not necessarily that dictators created society of disempowered people. It was really the level of consciousness of humanity that created dictators, that created hierarchical leadership. And I'm not saying hierarchical leadership are dictators, but dictators are a form of hierarchical leadership. And what came first, the chicken or the egg? It always feeds itself, right? So when the level of consciousness of humanity was at a place where humans couldn't self-regulate, they couldn't connect to what was moral and immoral, and they needed to be policed and regulated and commanded and led, hierarchical leadership reigned and ruled. But now we move into an era, again, that is birthing now, that is emerging now, of this self-awareness, self-empowerment. And the third part is self-ownership, self-responsibility. This is where we are taking responsibility, not just for our own actions, but yes, that is the first part. How many times have we seen humans, not even take responsibility for what they did? Like hit and runs are a perfect example of this. The fact that somebody can hit somebody else with a car and then take off because they don't want to face the action that they just took speaks very clearly of that level of consciousness where there is no self-ownership. But as these three things emerge in human consciousness through, first and foremost, the evolution of our consciousness at large, and secondly, through younger generations that are emerging, already built to function in a different level of consciousness, embodied authority, sovereign leadership is what is going to emerge. And this is much more of a state of co-creation. There may still be a quote unquote leader, but that leader is no longer controlling, no longer commanding from a state of, you have to listen to me, more of, what do we all believe is the best choice? That leader making perhaps that final choice, and then everybody moving from that action. So a co-creation. So if you are a leader of a corporation or a business or an entity of any kind, it's very important for you to hear what I'm saying here today, because you are going to start to experience this in your employees or your members or whatever it is. You're going to start to experience people that no longer, A, require hierarchical leadership, and B, don't respond to it. And you'll start to see the structure breaking down. More and more, you're going to see how we are all going to begin to realize how this hierarchical leadership bottlenecks energy, reduces efficiency, wastes a lot of time and energy, and is simply not effective. When those people who are in the company or the corporation or the community begin to step into self-awareness, self-empowerment, self-ownership. That's where the tipping point is. That is where hierarchical leadership becomes very, very ineffective. And of course, there's a transition point here, right? There's a transition point where people start becoming more aware. People start becoming more self-empowered. They're taking more responsibility, but maybe they're not fully taking responsibility, right? And that's the transition that you perhaps as a leader need to be able to hold that transition. And this is the key, because if you're a leader right now, you're going to have to understand how sometimes in certain circumstances or in certain areas of your company or your community, hierarchical leadership will still be needed. But in other areas, embodied authority will be needed. And if you want to stay in leadership, you're going to need to understand what that is and how to continue to hold that level and that specific type of leadership. So first and foremost, you yourself have to be an embodied leader. You yourself have to be self-aware, self-empowered, and take self-ownership. And if you can't say very clear yeses to all three of those things, then you've got some work to do. Because people are going to be rising up with those three qualities, and they're going to be stepping into leadership, because that is the leaders that will simply begin to naturally create coherence in companies and communities. Those are the leaders who are naturally going to be listened to and given presence to as people rise in their consciousness. Always in transition, it's shaky. It's like we have one foot on land and one foot in the boat, right? And there's a little bit of waves and the boat is rocking and you can lose your balance very easily. So you have to be aware of where your presence is. Is your presence exactly in the middle? Is your presence leaning to the boat a little bit that's a little bit unsteady? Or is it leading to the land that's a little bit more solid? Where is your presence? Where are you placing the command, the leadership? And is that right now working for wherever that leadership is being held, with a continuous willingness to reevaluate? Depending on the age of the people that you are in leadership with will also dictate how quickly this transition happens. Again, as I mentioned, younger generations are already not responding to hierarchical leadership. So if you're struggling with some of your employees or some of the people in your business or community or whatever it is, first off, notice how old they are and be curious if they need a different kind of leadership. And are you able to be that leader for them? Because embodied authority, as I mentioned, is a place of co-creation. So what do I mean by that? I mean that everybody is first and foremost aware of what they bring to the table. They're aware of their genius, and they're also aware of their weak links that everybody has. We all have weak aspects of self. In the past, we have been in a society that has feared vulnerability. Right? We don't want to show those weaknesses because that makes us weak. But emerging is where we are fully available to representing those weak links because we understand that that is not our personal point of power. But if it's somebody else's, then we can make a really good team. So teamwork starts to become a coherent structure where each individual is bringing their gifts to the table and also bringing their weaknesses to the table so that the team can find where each person fits, where each person brings their best to the table. If somebody is placed where they're actually very weak, right, in a position or a situation or a job or a title, whatever you want to call it, where they're not strong, well, they can't bring their genius to that table, right? They can't bring themselves fully to that table. They will always be in this state of struggle. And this happens more often than people are aware. Whereas when people are very clear on this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not good at, and that is honored in the team and in the leadership, now you're bringing out the best in everybody, and you're bringing the teams together to support the weakest points of everybody as well. Now you have a chain that is strengthening its weak links through the power of its strong links. So you create teams who work very, very effectively, efficiently, smoothly. Embodied authority, there's also clear communication, right? Self-awareness, clear communication. There's no hiding, there's no pretending. So this creates businesses at large that begin to function much more smoother. And now that authority that used to have to be at the very top and have to trickle down and then trickle back up and trickle down for every, tiny little thing that needed a decision on, Now decision can be handed over more and more to everybody with trust, with the knowingness that they can make those decisions, that they make decisions from a place of presence and clarity, not reactionary, not ego, not trying to perform or, get a leg up into the next position. They're making decisions that are truly there to support the business or the company or the community, whatever it is. So now everything begins to move much faster and smoother. There's no bottlenecking. There's no blame. There's no pointing the finger. Creativity peaks. Innovation peaks. Because people are able to bring out their gifts and their genius and what they're really good at. And therefore, when everybody's in their genius, creativity just flourishes. Now, problems are solved as quickly as they're recognized, and the problems are recognized faster as well. Conflict between individuals, conflicts between teams lessens, diminishes, and if there is conflict, it is addressed through communication and awareness. There is no lying, there is no stealing, right? These are all things that are leaving our society slowly but surely as we become self-aware, self-empowered, and we take self-ownership. So as a leader in this transition, again, the most important thing is to begin to notice, where is this already arising in your business, in your community, in your entity? Where are you seeing pushback on hierarchical leadership? And or where is it just no longer really working? Where is it not being received? Where is it falling apart, right? The bottlenecking, anything like that. And from there, what are the individuals within your business who are self-aware, who are self-empowered and take self-ownership? And how do you put them in a place of leadership? Can you place them in leadership, some level of leadership, so that they start to become the new leadership and they support the transition? It's a very beautiful time. It also is going to be a level of chaotic, and it is going to be confusing. So as a leader, having the full perspective of everything that's occurring, and again, having your own level of self-awareness is invaluable. You cannot put a price tag right now on your own self-awareness as a leader. It is invaluable. So being very clear in yourself with full honesty to the level of self-awareness you have. Can you recognize your emotions? Know what you are feeling, not just that you are feeling something, but be very clear on what you are feeling. Can you recognize the thoughts that are streaming through your head? Do you have focus over your thoughts, or do your thoughts have control over you? Do you know from what state of being you are taking action from? Are you reacting or are you responding? Do you know the why behind your actions? Or are your actions largely unconscious? It's time for leaders, first and foremost, to be self-aware. And from there, you will be able to naturally and innately know how to bring coherence into your business, your corporation, your community, the entity, whatever it is. And you will know how to give power to those who are self-aware, self-empowered, self-responsible, And through also giving power to those people, putting them in leadership, right? Creating more coherence in your company. This is how you will streamline, create fluidity through this transition. And watch how you do it as a leader, and you bring this in, even if it's just into your team, your individual team. Notice how it alters things around you, because it will. Because when we are in a state of coherence, working together, co-creating with each other, that is power. And that is a power that humanity has been detached and disconnected from for a very, very long time. So when that happens, it is felt. It is seen. It is recognized. I would love to hear how this episode landed for you. There was some big concepts that I'm trying to break down and bring clarity through for you. And I'm always intrigued to know how it landed for you. If you could digest the information, if you understood all of the nuances and layers that I was speaking to. And maybe most importantly, how are you going to utilize this information going forward? And if you need support becoming self-aware, I'm here for you. I can absolutely support you to become self-aware and in a state of embodied authority so that you maintain your leadership and you support this transition and actually greatly benefit from it, which is exciting. As always, I'm so grateful for your presence today, your willingness to hear these topics, to sometimes hear the difficult, raw, direct truth, and take ownership for yourself and how you lead and the impact that you have in your teams and communities, businesses, and the world.